Welcome, and thanks for joining me today as we explore climate security and national security in Florida. I'm Jessica Olcott-Ulimo, Director of Climate Security Programs at the American Security Project. We're excited to be presenting here at Florida Climate Week. Today, I'm going to talk through a broad overview of climate security and national security considerations specific to the state of Florida. While I won't be able to talk extensively about all of the climate security challenges we're facing, I hope you'll be able to walk away with an appreciation for the climate security and national security nexus, Florida's role in national security, and key climate adaptation and mitigation developments already underway. While national security has a range of diverse components, today's presentation will focus mostly on military installations and the subsequent effects on national security. To set the stage, I'd like to first introduce the American Security Project and how we approach climate security. The American Security Project, or ASP for short, is a nonpartisan, nonprofit think tank initiated by a bipartisan group of senators, including then-Senators John Kerry, Chuck Hagel, Gary Hart, and Ward Rudmond, to address the need for more robust dialogue about the changing nature of national security. Our Board of Directors and Consensus for American Security members are a coalition of former senior government officials, retired flag officers, and business leaders dedicated to exploring a broad range of security issues through events, traditional and new media, meetings, and publications. Although ASP executes research in several different policy areas, climate security has been one of our biggest areas of focus. Since 2014, our flagship program, the National Climate Security Tour, has conducted more than 45 events in 20 states. Specifically, in Florida, we've partnered with several universities, including Florida International University, Florida Southern College, and Full Sail University, to host 10 different events, each of which explore different ways of how climate security is impacting military installations and military communities, while also highlighting the adaptation and mitigation process underway. ASP has also built a website focused on military base resilience, which provides Florida-specific regional threat overviews, www.militarybaseresilience.org. In addition, ASP hosts the Climate Security in Focus blog series, which explores key elements of climate security to facilitate a better understanding of climate policy challenges. ASP also has a dedicated line of programming for maritime security and illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, electrification and electric vehicles, and Arctic security. Much of this work is relevant to Florida, but won't be able to be covered today. So if you'd like to know more, please visit our website at americansecurityproject.org. ASP approaches climate security research and climate challenges with the foundational understanding that climate change is an accelerant of instability. It exacerbates existing threats, risks, and hazards while converging to create new ones. Although the implications are complex, we focus our research in 7 areas. The 2 most prominent are the increase in extreme weather events and weather-related disasters, and sea level rise and coastal degradation. Other risks and hazards include water security, food security, public health, climate-related migration, and an increased risk of violent conflict. These 7 areas are by no means exclusive, but rather help frame our policy discussions. Understanding each of these issues is important on its own, but it is equally as important for us to understand how they impact each other. At the core of ASP's work is the belief that climate change is directly impacting our national security. It is already exacerbating existing threats, risks, and hazards while simultaneously creating new ones. It's impacting infrastructure, hurting our economy, and undermining the security and well-being of our fellow Americans. From energy and food security to our military readiness and economic competitiveness, no industry or individual would be unaffected by climate change. As mentioned previously, the conversation today will focus mostly on how climate change is impacting the U.S. military. From our installation communities at home to the shores of our partners and allies abroad, climate is changing the nature of when, where, why, and how militaries train and operate. We are already seeing how climate is impacting the U.S. military in three distinct ways: readiness, operations, and missions. Broadly speaking, these are three areas that can help clarify how climate is impacting the military and our national security. A 2019 Department of Defense climate report highlighted climate as a primary operational and readiness concern for 79 installations and classified them as at risk for severe climate impacts. Climate directly impacts readiness in several ways, but essentially it means that military forces may not be able to execute their missions on time and at full capacity. For example, Florida provides more than 180,000 square miles of training grounds for U.S. pilots, primarily over the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Climate-induced increases in black flag days, or days where the temperature reaches 90 degrees or higher, impacts the ability of soldiers to maintain proficiency, train, and exercise the skills needed to achieve mission success. According to official DoD statistics, the rates of heat stroke among military personnel stationed in the U.S. nearly doubled between 2014 and 2019. Additionally, between 2008 and 2019, the military spent nearly $1 billion on extreme heat-related injuries. With Florida bases projected to sustain a fourfold increase in dangerously hot days by 2050, the readiness impacts are sure to increase. Similarly, the impacts from extreme weather, like smoke from wildfires or storm surge from hurricanes, can either delay or destroy training infrastructure altogether. For example, in 2018, Hurricane Michael caused approximately $4.7 billion in catastrophic damages to Tyndall Air Force Base in Northwest Florida. All of the base's facilities were declared unlivable, and reconstruction is still underway. This has impacted Americans in uniform, DoD civilians, and the surrounding installation communities. All of this has a negative impact on readiness. Additionally, climate is impacting where and how the military operates. For example, the U.S. military, along with other Arctic nations, are paying close attention to melting permafrost that has the potential to open new areas for operations. The opening of the Arctic may require additional resources, like more icebreakers, as well as different types of equipment and training environments. According to the 2014 DoD Climate Roadmap, sea level rise could impact the execution of amphibious landings. Changing temperatures and lengthened seasons could impact operational timing windows. An increased frequency of extreme weather could impact overflight and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities. Consequently, this could impact how we understand our adversaries' capabilities and movements. Likewise, climate is increasing the number of extreme weather and severe weather events like typhoons and drought, which has resulted in an increased humanitarian assistance disaster relief operations abroad and more frequent defense support of civil authorities' missions at home. It may cause instability further in other countries by impairing access to food and water, spreading disease, exacerbating existing social tensions, and fueling mass migration. Climate change is subsequently likely to increase the operational tempo, or op-tempo, of military personnel and resources. For example, aircraft, vehicles, and other material resources require routine maintenance after so many uses. Similarly, pilots and watch commanders require so many hours of rest before they can go back to work. Climate change is likely to complicate already tight schedules and increase the op-tempo even further. Florida plays a critical role in national security. It is home to 3 combatant commands: U.S. Central Command, U.S. Special Operations Command, and U.S. Southern Command, as well as more than 20 bases which represent every branch of the U.S. military. CENTCOM is responsible for U.S. security interests in the Middle East, North Africa, and Southwest and Central Asia. Special Operations Command is responsible for disrupting, defeating, and destroying terrorist networks. SOUTHCOM is responsible for providing contingency planning, operations, and security cooperation in Central and South America, as well as the Caribbean. Impacts of these Florida installations have a truly global reach. However, 8 of Florida's installations, seen here, have been ranked most at risk of impacts from climate change. These threats include rising sea levels, recurrent flooding, extreme weather events, extreme heat, drought, and wildfires. For example, both Eglin Air Force Base and MacDill Air Force Base have experienced persistent coastal erosion resulting from higher storm surges and recurrent flooding. As mentioned previously, Hurricane Michael caused catastrophic damages to Tyndall Air Force Base, as well as Eglin Air Force Base, which is still causing delays and disruptions across the F-22 enterprise. The F-22 is a critical component of the U.S. Global Strike Force and a premier fighting element, and is still suffering from hurricane-related maintenance, training, and workforce pipeline challenges, even years later. Likewise, with rising sea levels, Tampa installation communities have to contend with less underground water storage, saltwater intrusion, and damaged utilities and roadways. Likewise, flooding and outdated wastewater infrastructure has increased the frequency and intensity of harmful algal blooms in Florida water sources, which poses a risk that creates an unsafe environment for Marine Patrol training and operations. There are several other Florida military bases that are contending with extreme weather and climate hazards, including Naval Air Station Jacksonville, the 3rd largest naval facility in the country, and Naval Station Mayport, the 3rd largest naval fleet concentration in the United States. Air Station Clearwater in Tampa Bay is one of the U.S. Coast Guard's largest and busiest air stations with an operating area that includes the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Basin, and the Bahamas. Climate risks and hazards there can impact drug trafficking missions, smuggling and interdiction operations, as well as search and rescue operations in and around the Florida coast. By 2050, Florida's coastal installations may experience up to 10 times the number of floods they experience today. Likewise, as ocean water continues to warm and sea temperatures continue to rise, there will be more rain, more flooding, and more damage to infrastructure, which impacts the military's ability to train and operate, as well as creating additional risks and hazards for installation communities writ large. While these climate risks create cascading effects statewide, Florida is also at the tip of the spear with at least 2 other climate security concerns: climate migration and IUU fishing. A recent report by the Nature Climate Change Journal found that up to 13 million people, with potentially half of those in Florida, could be forced to adapt or flee their homes if sea level rise follows or exceeds current projections. With the increase in extreme weather and severe weather events, there may also be more migration, as was seen following Hurricane Maria in 2017. In the aftermath of the Category 5 hurricane, more than 56,000 Puerto Ricans were estimated to have relocated to Central Florida, exacerbating an already turbulent housing shortage. Likewise, shifting migration patterns and a dramatic increase in migrant vessel interception off the coast of Florida put the Coast Guard on track to intercept 15 times as many migrants in 2021 as it did in 2020. Likewise, when talking about the potential impacts of climate change, I would be remiss if I did not highlight the illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing issue, which is a global scourge with various hotspots, including in and around Central and South America. It is an economic and environmental issue, synonymous with several transnational threats, including human trafficking, smuggling, and labor abuses, and this has caused the U.S. Coast Guard to label it the world's #1 maritime security threat. USSOUTHCOM, located in Doral, has made combating IUU fishing a priority, as has the U.S. Coast Guard's 7th District Headquarters in Miami. The 7th District Headquarters is responsible for U.S. Coast Guard activities in a 1.7 million square nautical mile area, including Puerto Rico, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and most of Central and South America. Given Florida's geographic proximity and mission set for these key military elements, Florida is at the tip of the spear for national security. Any climate issues felt here will be felt elsewhere. Fortunately, climate change is something that the Department of Defense has been planning for and thinking about for more than 10 years. The Department of Defense has identified climate change as a threat to its operations and installations as far back as 2010. In 2014, DoD issued the Climate Change Adaptation Roadmap, which acknowledged the direct threats and impacts that climate change would have on the military's ability to execute its missions and maintain national security. Following the Biden administration's issuance of Executive Order 14008, Tackling the Climate Crisis at Home and Abroad, and Executive Order 14057, Catalyzing Clean Energy Industries and Jobs Through Federal Sustainability, more than 20 federal agencies released climate plans, including the Departments of Homeland Security and Health and Human Services, as well as the Department of Defense. Subsequently, the Departments of the Army and Navy also released plans, and the Air Force plan is expected to be published imminently. In addition, DoD has updated the Unified Facilities Criteria, which guides installation building codes, to incorporate climate change-related risks into installation master planning. All of this demonstrates the importance of climate security as an element of national security. More specifically, DoD and the service branches put electrification and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions at the forefront of their efforts. The DoD Climate Adaptation Plan outlines two major lines of effort for responding to climate change: adaptation to enhance resilience, and mitigation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It is DoD policy to include climate considerations across all operations and planning activities. The Army Climate Strategy outlines plans to pursue three major goals to reach its desired end states: achieve a 50% reduction in Army net greenhouse gas pollution by 2030, attain net zero Army greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, and proactively consider the security implications of climate change in strategy, planning, acquisition, supply chains, and programming documents and processes. The Army has already decreased overall installation greenhouse gas emissions by 20% since 2008 and remains committed to 100% carbon pollution-free electricity to meet the needs of its installations by 2030. The Navy Climate Action 2030 Plan outlines two major goals: building climate resilience and reducing the climate threat. It iterates several specific targets, including achieving a 65% reduction in Scope 1 and Scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions department-wide by 2030, achieving a 100% carbon pollution-free electricity by 2030, acquiring 100% zero emissions vehicles by 2035, and achieving a 50% reduction in emissions from buildings by 2032. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions is a priority for the entire DoD enterprise, not simply because it helps the U.S. achieve its strategic climate goals, but also because it's a smart operational and tactical decision. DoD has the second largest federal vehicle fleet and has already transitioned tactical vehicles to hybrids and moving non-tactical cars and trucks on bases straight to electric. This is important. Less fuel dependence means less fuel convoys and less casualties. The military spends approximately $81 billion annually on protecting oil infrastructure, and resupply can cost 4 lives for every 100 convoys in theater. Deputy Secretary of Defense Dr. Kathleen Hicks put it succinctly during a recent speech: electric vehicles are quiet. They have a low heat signature and incredible torque, and because they tend to be low maintenance with fewer moving parts, they have the potential to reduce logistics requirements, all of which helps give our troops an edge on the battlefield. Electrification can help our military be more secure by reducing dependence on foreign oil and gas and reduce financial incentives of petrostates. Military installations also contribute approximately $12 billion annually to local economies, so enhancing climate resilience is a key priority for defense communities, not only for national security, but also for economic reasons. There are several federal climate mitigation and resilience building programs that demonstrate the importance of integrating climate risks and hazards into military planning and national security planning. These are only a few highlights that demonstrate the importance of integrating climate considerations and conceptualizing climate as a national security issue. The Defense Community Infrastructure Program is designed to address deficiencies not just at the military installations, but also in community infrastructure that supports the installation in order to enhance its value, increase resilience, and improve military family quality of life. In 2021, Naval Station Pensacola was awarded approximately $6.4 million in funding to construct emergency and submerged offshore reef breakwaters and 20 acres of sandy beach habitat. Earlier this year, the Eglin Air Force Base community was tentatively approved for $3.4 million in funding for construction of a new fire station to enable wildland firefighting and faster deployment of emergency medical services. Similarly, Naval Station Mayport was also tentatively awarded construction of a new water main to improve capacity and pressure for consumers directly adjacent to the installation, enable future connection to the installation, and provide redundancy. Meanwhile, the Sentinel Landscapes Partnership is a coalition of federal agencies, state and local governments, and non-governmental organizations that works together with private landowners to advance sustainable land management practices around military installations and ranges. DoD, the Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Interior partner to strengthen military readiness, conserve natural resources, bolster agricultural and forestry economies, and increase climate change resilience. Florida is home to 2 of the 10 partnerships. The Avon Park Air Force Range Sentinel Landscape in South Central Florida is anchored by the Air Force's largest primary air-to-ground training range east of the Mississippi River, which is used by every branch of the armed forces. It is also home to portions of the Everglades Headwaters National Wildlife Refuge and Conservation Area and covers almost 1.7 million acres of land. The Northwest Florida Sentinel Landscape encompasses agricultural lands, forests, endangered species habitats, and all 9 Northwest Florida military installations. These Sentinel Landscape programs help facilitate military mission assurance, restore and increase resiliency and sustainability of habitat and water resources, retain working agriculture and forest lands, mitigate coastal risks, and increase the climate resilience of military installations. The Military Installation Sustainability Program funds enhancements in infrastructure on military installations, and the DoD also funds different research projects. The South Florida Defense Alliance and South Florida Regional Planning Council were recently awarded DoD funding for a military installation resilience review that, when complete, can set the standard for regional cooperation and collaboration across the U.S. DoD is also considering hosting a Joint Resiliency Center of Excellence in South Florida to integrate strategic, operational, and infrastructure risks to national security. Florida truly is at the tip of the spear for national security and climate change. As we wrap up today, I hope I've left you with 2 key takeaways. First, Florida is home to more than 20 military installations that play a critical role in national security and military readiness. Second, the Department of Defense and each of the service branches are already acting to adapt and mitigate to climate change, recognizing that climate security is a key component of our national security. If you're interested in knowing more about the climate and security nexus or want to get in touch to partner on a future event, please visit us at americansecurityproject.org or email us at info@americansecurityproject.org. Thanks for joining us today.